the equation. We've done the first half, where a painting exists and a painter exists. And a painter will make paintings. And like, I have a bunch of deliverables that we'll go through as we do this. Don't worry about writing those down. We'll achieve them as we go. So we know we have our painter. It has its name, age, style. I'm going to make sure my files run. I actually did some updates onto this compared to what we had before, which reminds me that I actually should double check for sure because I changed some ordering around. So if I look at my painter, it has the name, an age, and a style. So I have a name, age, and style. And this time I made my painter, instead of saying owner, I changed them all to be galleries. But for the context, we can say like an owner is a gallery. So like we have a gallery here, a gallery here, a gallery here, and a gallery here. And until we build out the gallery class, we can continue to use strings. So I'm going to make sure it goes in the order. So I'm supposed to have a painter. I change it to the title, the Great Cheese V5. We're just jumping. We're jumping here. And then it says a style, which I'll say post uniqueness. It has its year, 1991. Interesting. And then the gallery. Arens. I'm trying to do alliteration. Artist art exhibit. Arens art exhibit. I'm sorry, I couldn't think of it like. Arboretum. Close enough. Cheese plants. It's. What's up?
Age and year.
Good question. So this is the year the painting was done. Do I see an age here?
Oh, how old? Sorry, I get it. That's for Prince and Daniel. Got it.
Yes, this is how old I am. So my painter has an age. So I'm 10,000. But I was, I made this painting in 1991. So like, just take it or leave it. Just like, I had a lot of time on my hands to make this amazing painting that is now owned by Aaron. So I'm just going to double check that this works. I'm going to say Ruby. And what do I do to run this file? Run.rb. So I have this run file here. Make sure it runs. Please work. Didn't do anything. That's because of this binding.pry. So for me, binding.pry does not like to exist. So if I change this to pry.start, let's see what happens. Ruby is magic. I wish I could say I understand why. So you would think after doing it so many times I would figure it out, but it's so minute, it's so small, it's like undetectable for like us. And I've been asking people like, hey, why does this happen? It's very small, because this shouldn't happen really. So I have Prince, I can call Prince. If I have Daniel, and Cheese 2 exists as the painting, and Prince can still get its paintings. We've done that logic. How does Prince get its paintings? Does anyone want to ask? Or like, tell me how it works before they see the code? Go for it, Chris.
Isn't it paintings.all, and then you would do select, and then check for the paintings and the art is equal to me? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Remember what I just said about the single source of truth. Every time I create a painting, the painting class gets a painting added to its at all, that class variable. So there's already been a place in our program where we stored the data of what that painting is. We store it in this at all, which we get from here. The painting.all gives us reference to that at all. In here, I'm asking the painting class to give me all of the things that match me. That's it. I only want that data. I'm not going to keep that data for myself. I'm not going to make an @paintings instance variable on the painter anymore. That's not what we're going to do. because the painting has control of all paintings, and I just ask for a piece of data from it. So there's only one place that we ever have to worry about in regards to a painting.
I have a question that's for me. Dude, I have a question that's for me.
Okay. Are there questions? I know it seems awkward, and it might seem like something that we're doing right now in the labs, because you have to work up to this point, right? Is this idea that a painting.all will give me all of the paintings, and I'm selecting from here the paintings that belong to me, the painter. Go for it.
What if you just put painters in the middle and paintings, like, can you just like decide all of a sudden painters are the hubs to their galleries and their paintings? Like, do you like make a judgment call on like, you're gonna be the hub element, like, because you're all connected, but I want you to go through painters to access their paintings or through them to access paintings.
You're absolutely correct. As a developer, you have control over that. However, sometimes there are better models or better domains for us to express how that relationship works. So even though we could put paintings on the other side of this, the reason why is that we would actually have to go like kind of backwards, right? Like we would have to say that we go through a painter, find the paintings, because there's multiple paintings that a painter does, right? And then have to like associate it backwards. So there's like a lot, it's just like the number of times I iterate over just becomes a lot. The reason why it kind of flows this way is the painter owns those paintings. Even though it kind of sits in the middle, the painting sits in the middle, the painter owns these paintings. And it just will say as well on the other half of it. So this is the chicken foot that says, I have many of this. And the other half of it, this little single line says, we read it backwards as, painting belongs to a painter.
Okay.
So if we were to switch this right now, it would say that a painting has many painters, in that a painter belongs to a painting. And I don't know, that doesn't flow right? It doesn't stick. Did you have a question, Chris?
I was just going to say that the concept of through also helps this make sense to me, because like a painter and gallery need something to go through, so what you go through.
I guess in my head I'm thinking like the painter goes to the gallery and is like, here's my painting. You know what I mean? Like when I think of through in my head, yeah.
And that isn't wrong necessarily, right? Like we could make a logic where it says that the painting isn't initially added to a gallery. We give it to a gallery. But that still means that the painting belongs to that gallery.
Yeah, I think that the belongs to and has relationship is helpful to me. That
Right.
makes sense to me.
Yeah,
It could
breaking
have-
it down. Go ahead.
It could have like an extra data, like owner, so it could be owned either by the gallery or the painter.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
There are multiple ways of expressing that same piece. Yeah, go for it.
Like conceptually, I understand how these things relate to one another, but I'm still not quite understanding in code how these classes interact with one another. That's what I'm just kind of struggling.
Okay, yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. So, remember, every time I make a painting, I hit this definition, right?
Right.
This is the definition of paintings. In the definition, it says, every time I make a new painting, these are the pieces I need. This is what I do when I hit painting.new. I need a painter, a title, a style, a year, and a gallery. This is what happens behind the scenes when I make a painting.new. Anywhere in the code that I say painting.new, this is what happens. I set all these properties for a painting. And then the last step is I save this painting, the instance of the painting, the one that I'm looking at, into a class variable called all. And this all, what it's going to do is store every time I make a painting. It stores every reference to a painting. And then what happens is the painter class says, give me all of the paintings, all references to a painting, but only give me specifically the ones where the painting.painter, that object, equals to me. So when my memory address is equal to the memory address itself, like when the memory address of this painting's painter is the same as me, then it's mine. It only gets easier if you start commenting out the code and like writing it out in English rather than just like writing it, because then it won't make much sense. Is there any questions? Okay, so we've only done the painter and painting. What do you think I need to do next?
Gallery.
Let's do the gallery. So I'm going to add a new file, and I'll call it gallery.rb. We call these model files, and we typically use them as a singular. It's kind of important that they're the singular. Ruby won't fail, but later in Mod 2 it will fail if you use the plural. And you'll see what happens then. So I want to make a painting, not a painting, I want to make a gallery. So what do I need to do?
Fancy class.
Class, right? Class gallery. End. Done. Easy. Met the first deliverable. So let's look at the README again. I'm going to move this over here for a second. And so we have some painter stuff. We have some painting stuff. Well, we don't worry about all of it. But here in a gallery class, it says it should initialize with a name, a reader method for that name. It has a method called paintings that turns in an array of painting instances, and a method called painters that returns an array of painter instances. Notice we read all of the deliverables here. This is very important. As we read all of the pieces that I need to make this painter class, or this gallery class. I need to stop saying those words. The gallery class. So I understood each step of the way that there's something I need to do, and nothing to me seemed out of the realm of my control, out of my realm. Like I knew kind of every piece what that needed. There wasn't anything that's like said, oh God, what is that piece? That's because I've written a lot of this here. As you go through your code, always like read through the README first. Always read through it. At least once. Do it. And it's really easy to get caught up to not reading the full instructions. It's really easy to just dive straight in. But it actually wastes more time that you have to go back and read the instructions because you're not familiar with it. Your brain subconsciously actually tries to solve problems after it's heard it. So even though you've read it once, you might not stick in the short-term memory. It's hidden behind where it's actually trying to solve it. And you'll pick up any keywords you might need to pay attention to along the way. So if I look at the first two deliverables, it says it should initialize with a name and a reader method for that name. So what should I write here? Someone raise their hand and tell me. Go for it.
attr_reader.
And what does that do?
Sets it.
Sets what?
Oh, sorry. The name. So full name.
And what does this generate?
Pardon?
What does this give me?
That'll give you allow you to initialize it with the name.
It builds a method that reads
Right.
an attribute.
Right. This gives me a method that reads the attribute name. So that meets the reader method for name. Someone else tell me, how do I initialize with a name? Go for it, James.
It's def initialize,
Mm-hmm.
and we pass in the argument of name,
Perfect.
and then inside we do at name equals name,
Perfect. And what type of variable is this on the left-hand side?
instance variable.
Perfect. This is an instance variable. And I'm saying this instance variable is equal to name, which comes from here. Go for it.
How do we know that it's getting name?
Because we told it to.
I'm saying, can it not initialize with a variable name and not necessarily have name passed into it?
Absolutely. So let's say I'll comment this away. I say def initialize right now. And let's say I'm going to exit Pry. I need to make sure I require this file inside of my run.rb. I'll say require relative so we can test it. We did a lot of writing, but let's test some stuff. Notice that we're testing it. We're not just like gonna go straight into the learn test. We're gonna actually test it physically because we want to see what can we do. First, we see, does this even load? So I say gallery. Already doesn't want to load. That's because I accidentally saved. Gallery. Gallery.new. I made a new instance. I checked the premise of everything I'm about to tell my code. I made an initialize method. It has no arguments, so I can just say .new and it generates a new object. But I can't pass anything in. Like if I were to say Prince's portfolio, that's the name of the gallery. It's going to give me an error. It says wrong number of arguments. Given 1, and it's expected 0. Because in my definition, I said you're not going to be required to give it. What is there a follow-up question, Paul?
No, I'm just saying, but you can put inside there, in the definition of name, you could put a name variable.
Like this?
You could just call it give it a string or whatever, and it'll initialize. So every time a new gallery opens, it'll have the same name.
Right.
What I'm saying is, like, then you can have another method somewhere that says rename the gallery,
Yes.
and it'll modify it. It's like self name, and then it'll modify it. I'm just saying that you don't necessarily have just because it's initialized with the name doesn't necessarily mean it passes the name in, right?
The deliverables ask us to initialize with a name. If I make another method here to change the name, for instance, I'll make a writer called name, and I'll pass in name. It says name equals name. I'm going to say exit and run my file. I'll make a new gallery again. The gallery's attribute is name. Let's say Prince gallery here to gallery.new. Now every time I say Prince underscore gallery, it gives me this data. And if I say .name, it returns back Prince. While yes, this is doable, I don't want this behavior. That wasn't asked of me. What's wrong with this?
Well, it's not useful.
It's not just about it not being useful, but it allows someone else to change the gallery's name, and that wasn't what was asked of us. Because at any point in our code, we can change the gallery's name now, rather than it just have been initialized, which only means I give the gallery's name one time, and no longer can it be changed. And that's the reason why we have to match those deliverables. Is while this actually meets the objective, this gives us too much power. That means that anyone can change someone's name for our gallery. But we only want it to have the name once we've given it. And that's it. Go for it.
So if you need something to only be readable,
Mm-hmm.
then you essentially have to assign it an initialize because you can never do it again after that.
It's not like the only time, but it's the most common time that we'll see this.
Okay.
So the idea is that when I initialize, when I say .new and I give it the parameter name, in this case, I want it to initialize this instance variable with name one time and never be changed ever again. And that is the reason why we chose to use a reader here instead of a writer or an accessor. Because this allows me to just set the @name, the instance variable, one time and only let me read it moving forward. And it's good to like think about these things because we want to limit the amount of control someone else has. That's a big thing that we have to think about as developers. Is we want to limit the amount of control someone outside of this function has control, like has the ability to do. So exit one more time. Prince's gallery is going to be new, and notice it's going to fail this time because it says it's given 0 and it expected 1. So I will need to give Prince's perfect portfolio. Sorry, y'all, the code doesn't lie. And now it initializes because I gave it what it's looking for. I gave it one variable allows me to give this back? All great questions. So let's look at the README again. So we hit these two, and typically what I do is I'll like do little dots after here, just to say like I finished it. This is for me, so I don't need to go backwards. The next step is building out the relationship from my gallery to paintings. It says I need a method. What type of method is this?
Instance.
Instance. If you ever see in like the labs or the lessons or any like anything that we give you, if you see this pound symbol, this octothorpe, this hashtag, it says that this is an instance method. So this must happen on an instance. If you ever see the little period, that says that's a class method. Cool?
Yeah.
That's like a super easy like way of defining it. This is a Ruby convention. We do that because as Rubyists, it's easy to read our code looking just like that simple. It's like as soon as I see this, I instantly know no matter what project I'm looking at, what I'm doing here. So this is an instance method that returns an array of painting instances. If we think about it, this should return me back an array of paintings that belong to that gallery. So what could we take from here that will be useful for us to building out this method? What could we do here? What are our thoughts?
You first need to access all the paintings.
Right. We need to access all the paintings. What do you think from there, Paul?
I would create an all variable for the class.
What class?
The class gallery.
Okay.
So like an add all empty array and then push all the new. Oh, never mind. Sorry.
I think you're on the right track still. So if I have all of my paintings, what do I want to do from there?
I want to map them into an array.
What is the map going to do?
It's going to search all of the paintings of that gallery, and then it's going to output an array that has the paintings in it. I'm sorry if I'm like getting ahead of myself a little bit.
So let's reel it back then. Let's like baby steps. We have an array of all paintings. And what does every painting have for us? If we don't know, let's check it out. I know I'm going to use painting.all. This gives me all paintings here.
Right, so
And if I look back to the painting here, I have several pieces. I have a painter, a title, a style, a year, and a gallery. I have a reader for painter, style, title, year, and an attribute accessor for gallery. So what does that mean?
that means that there's a gallery variable in painting.
Mhm.
So I could do a find
Sure.
and find all of the paintings that have the gallery variable that match what I'm looking for.
Right on the money. I want to go through all the paintings that match my instance of a gallery. So all the paintings that have the gallery variable that equals, let's say, the met. If these are the same place in memory as what I've assigned here to what I check, it's going to be a match, just like we did with the painter. It's exactly what we did with the painter. It's where the painter said, I'm going to go through all the paintings, and I'm going to go ahead and select all the paintings that match me. Do we see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, one person, tell me, what do I write here? Raise your hand, please. Go for it, James.
Painting.all.select do painting.
Mm-hmm. And then what do we want here? And let's think about what are we checking? Checking if here, I always think back, these are called like iterators, enumerators. And whatever I do here inside of this block, I do for as if I were looking at one instance, but I apply it to every instance. So whatever I do for one, I'll do for all. Okay? Do you want to try to finish it out? It's up to you.
Sure. If painting.gallery
Right, if painting.gallery
is equal to
So yes, exactly. And here, what we'll say, if this is true, return it back. And I will actually remove this if. Because select is looking for a truthy value. It's looking inside of here, saying, does this line, line 16, return true? So it says, check if the painting's gallery is equal to self, aka the instance of the gallery. And that's what we did here. Any questions about that? You want to see it work? Biggest things, big pieces. You wrote some code, let's test it. I will never not test it. And if you catch me doing something where I'm not testing it, you should tell me. You should yell at me. I give you permission for it. So let's say, one, I'm going to make prints, make a painting. Notice I'm about to get rid of this line here because I actually want to follow the flow of how my application works. Every painter has the ability to make a painting. So the painter should make the painting instance no matter what. I don't need to keep track of this variable anymore because I already know the painting.all keeps track of it for me. So the painter is going to make a painting. And what it's going to ask is, I need a title, a style, a year, and a gallery. I'm going to change this to gallery. And I pray to the demigods that it works from not checking my code. So first I need a gallery instance because that's what it's asking for here, is I want a gallery instance, just like I asked for a painter instance here. So let's make the painter instance that I was, the gallery instance that I was making here. I'll say gallery.new, and what do I need to make a new gallery?
A name.
A name. If we don't remember, we go back to the file. It says a name. So I'm going to give it the Met. To make a painting, I need a title. So let's say The Great Cheese V10. Let's think of a style. Modernism this time. Modernism, not creative, everyone. I'm sorry. This time it's going to be 1990. And notice I'm not going to put a string here anymore because I want this to be the gallery instance I made over here from the Met. I'm going to just give it this. I'm going to get rid of the line below it. And pull this over. So there are two painters, Prince and Daniel. The Met is a gallery, and Prince is going to make a painting called this that's going to go into making a painting, and on top of it, it's going to associate the painting to both the painter and the gallery. It does it all in one step through painting. It says, take this painter, associate it here. Give it all these attributes for a painting, and then make the association for the gallery. So let's see if it works. And I pray to the demigods it does. Great. So if I check my gallery, I can say Met, it gives me Met. If I say Prince, it gives me Prince. I can say prints.paintings, and it should say I have a painting. If I say met.gallery, met.paintings, sorry, because I have this method here. It's what type of method?
It's an instance.
Instance method.
Let's
Okay, I should see the same painting. And on top of that, this painting, this memory address that I have here for my painting, is exactly the same one that I have here. The painting class owns all copies of paintings. And the other two classes are asking for permission to obtain those memory places. It's not keeping a copy of it. It's asking to just see this and only just like ask for it. Its only thing it can do is ask for it. It does not keep anything from it. Every time I make the method call, it's just asking for that data to be seen, and that's it. I cannot change this data because this is getting pulled from the source of location. It's not saying like, oh, I can say like met.paintings and I shovel stuff in. Like if I try to do this, oh gosh, I hope this works. Oh man, let's try this, test. Notice here, this array painting, it has the word test in here. And it looks deceiving. It looks like I pushed test inside here. And it's now, every time I call met.paintings, it's gonna work. But if I say met.paintings, notice test is in here. That's because our method, its sole job is to return back an array of data. Anything I put afterwards is only changing the set of data that I got back and never actually like saving it anywhere. Is there any questions about that?
Is so when you do that, is what you're reading, is that like a copy of all of that information? Or is it the original information and then anything you do to change it just as like temporary?
Yes, so essentially I'm asking permission. Met.paintings is asking permission for paintings to give me all the data that I need to see. It only gives me the data I need to see, nothing else. It gives me an array. And what I can do from here is I can do changes to the array I got back, but every time I make this call, right, every time I make this call, I'm asking for permission from the paintings class.
Gotcha.
So even though this changes what I got back here, this never affects the painting class because it's asking again, once again, for permission of data. So it's only in the sense that it's changing for this time period and not every single time.
So it's a shell copy. Like, can I store it into a variable and then do other things with it?
You could, but once again, the met.paintings only ask permission for the painting class. And we want to ask from the painting class stuff. This never makes a reflection to the actual painting.all. I know that's a little hard to see, but that's an important piece.
Because met.paintings is a method.
Yeah.
So it's running every time you call it.
Yeah, met.paintings is a method here. And every time I call met.paintings, it's always going to execute this line of code. It's like a reader. All it does is read. It gives me data to read. That's it. It never has permission to change any data. That's the real reason why we call them readers. It never will have permission, and it will always give back the same set of data, no matter what. Cool? Any questions? Because you're all questioning it, really. If there are questions, please ask. Because this is hard. I'm not expecting you to not have questions.
How do we get the painters from the gallery?
Yes! That's beautiful segue. Beautiful segue.
Questions?
Beautiful segue. So, if I have all the data about paintings, what do I know about paintings? A single painting, what does it tell me?
It's title.
Right. It tells me the title, it tells me the style, it tells me the year, and it tells me the painter. Every painting that I will get back will also know about the painter. And so what I could do is probably use this and get back the painter from here. And the biggest piece is, like, why would we want that? What could you think about? Like, what about this relationship would make that useful? Like, why would we want that? Go for it.
You just want the painters of the paintings associated with the gallery.
Right. The gallery is saying, hey, I want to know all the painters that have ever painted for me. And the only way a gallery knows about the painters that have ever painted for this gallery is through the paintings. gallery will ask paintings to say, hey, paintings, who painted you? And so it will show the painter from there. It will always go that way. The same is true from the opposite direction. A painter wants to know where all of its paintings have been placed, what galleries it's been. The painter asks the paintings, hey, where are y'all at? And it goes and says, this is where we are, the gallery. Yes?
So you should never have to ask the painter class a question to the gallery?
The painter class can ask a question to the gallery, but only through the painting.
Okay.
And we'll do this. We'll do one way. We're gonna do one way, and then I'll let y'all do the other way. So, def paintings. This gives me an array of paintings, just like I saw here. This gives me all of the paintings that exist in the Met. And I'm about to do what we'll want to write in code on the left in our editor, but I'll do it in Pry first. If I have Met.paintings, and I have an array. Let's say I look at a single painting. How do I get this painting's painter? One person, raise their hand. One person, raise their hand. That is not done. Go for it.
So you have the same Met.paintings, 0, another square brackets, and you said the what? The name?
I just want the painting's painter.
Painter. So then square brackets, and this is an instance variable. You say symbol painter.
So this.
Yeah.
What does this mean when we use the square brackets? What do we think this has been used for? It's a key, right? We use this as a key in a hash. But right now, right now we have an object.
Yeah.
So on our object, we can use methods.
Okay.
So if I were to take this
Dot
painter, right? You're right. You have painter. It's just remembering what type of data we're using. And that's going to be very important. Always remember what type of data you're using. Here, I tested that. If I look at a single instance of a painting, single thing on the paintings array, I see it says it's a painting object. And then I tested it. How would I get a piece of data for one piece, like one item? Met.paintings.painter. And I can use this and apply it to all paintings that the Met owns. If I figure out what I can do for one instance, I can figure out how to do it for every instance. Keeping that mindset is super valuable. If you're not comfortable with enumerators, you need to get comfortable with them. They're going to be very important for us. We're going to be using them a lot. That isn't to say that you can't use each. You should use each in certain places. You should use map in certain places. You should use filter and find. I don't think filter exists in Ruby. Select or find by. There's so many different types of enumerators that you can use here. What do you think you could do here, where I want to take a painting and get back its painter and make an array of painters? What do we think we could do? I want, as if I were to do this for every single painting, I want to apply this to every single one. Someone wants to go for it.
Wait, do you want a new array?
Yeah, why? Maybe I want a new array, right?
Use collect.
Yeah, we can use collect. Collect, right? What does collect do for us?
So it goes through each of the things in the array, it returns it into we modify it and it returns it into a new array.
Right. I perform some sort of transformation onto my data. If I say I want to duplicate numbers, I want to multiply every number in an array by 2. I'll take an array. Let's say I have this array. Let's say I store it into a variable. I have an array. If I say array, it gives me back that data. If I want to multiply every number, I'll use collect or map, whichever one you prefer. They're literally the same. I prefer using map because this is going to appear in every language. Map is a term that we'll use in every language. Collect is specifically for Ruby. It's also really tricky because it seems like it does what select would do. Because the way we use it in English is like, oh, I collect all the pieces. But that is like a misnomer. That's not what it does. So I'll take my num, and notice I'm using the word num here because I like to say number. Because I'm trying to remember what is one piece of item inside of my array. And I'll say like number times 2. And this gives me back a new array with what I asked it to do for one single case and apply it to all of them. And so if I look at the original array, notice it's not changed. So what will I do here? Go for it, James.
We have to create like a new array.
Sure.
To save our like painters that we collect.
Okay.
And then we do painting.all.
Okay.
.map.
Okay.
And,
I like all those pieces. I think what you're saying is like painting.all select painting for the gallery, right? Like kind of the same logic that we did here.
Yeah.
And let's say like we stored this in a variable. If I took all this, let's say I have paintings, let's say gallery paintings. I'll store it into a variable. I'll use that variable, gallery paintings, and for, you know what, I'll just put a binding to pry here and go from there. I like using pry and building out my stuff. So if the Met asks for its painters, I'm in my binding to pry. If I look at gallery paintings, this is all the paintings inside of the gallery. All I did is copied this code down here and stored it into a variable. That's all I did. Now, I want this array, I want to change it. So every painting reveals its painter. So I'll do a map, as James had already said. So, what is the single item in this array? What would I give this variable?
A painting.
Painting. Because I'm talking about the single item in the current array. And I want to get from the painting its painter. And say end. And now, notice I have an array here that says painter. When I had it before, it said painting. I went inside of the painting, looked for the painter instance variable, and said return back to me the painter instance variable of my painting. And do that for every painting. And that's how a gallery will get its painters. Are there questions about that? Go for it.
Can you just use the method instead?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes, for sure. Let's test it working. There's a practice that we do. It's called test-driven development. It also has a principle called red-green refactor, meaning I have a red failing test. My code wasn't written yet. I make it work first, and then I make it better. So I'm going to test, did this work? I did a galleries, and remember, what does map return?
New array.
A new array. So since it's the last line of a method, what is the method going to return? The new array. Awesome. I love hearing it in unison. It's great. There it is. The Met asked for its painters. And it said, here are the instances of painter that belong to me. So it worked. Like if I were to, let's say Daniel makes a painting. Oh gosh. Let's make another gallery. What is another gallery that exists? An easy spell. The Louvre. I don't know. I think that's how you spell the Louvre. MoMA 2. Love it. Thank you for being cultured people that know about like different places that exist. And like MoMA. And if you don't know, that's okay, because like I didn't really know about any of these places till I moved to New York. So that's really cool. I'm not a particular person to modern art. Sorry if you are. I would love for you to teach me how modern art, like how am I supposed to appreciate it, but I just can't. I've been to the MoMA. I went on one of the free days, and I was like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to see here. Like, I don't. What am I supposed to get? I don't get it. Daniel, what is a painting you're gonna make?
Art.
Art. I love it. It's a great name.
That's going in MoMA.
And modernism, WeWorkism. I saw this, and that's where it came from. It's the style, and it was made in 2018. And it's a foosball table. It's gonna go in the Louvre. Actually, it's gonna go in the MoMA. It's gonna go in the MoMA. And Daniel, you're gonna make another painting. Like, you're just really popular. You're on fire today. What is the name of the painting? Success?
Yeah.
I love it. Success. Its style is
Optimism.
optimism. I always spell it wrong, so that's why I was like hesitant. And you know, this was made in 2019. Like, you're just ahead of the game right now. And it's gonna be in the MoMA as well. So Daniel made some paintings. Notice he made 2 paintings. They both exist in the MoMA. So if I check the MoMA's paintings, how many paintings am I supposed to see? 2. So if I say MoMA, I see the gallery. If I say paintings, I see 2. And if you're ever like, I don't know how many numbers I have, count. Literally, MoMA.paintings. This is an array. Arrays have methods. We can say count. Count how many items are in here. Really easy trick. Really easy trick. Super simple. And the same is true here. There have been only ever 3 paintings created. Painting.all.count. 3 paintings. So, one painting should exist in the Met. So if I say Met.paintings.count, there's the other one. The Louvre, when it says paintings, it will have an empty array. That's fine. It doesn't have any paintings. That's great. It's great. Now, we checked all the principles. Notice we put a bunch of test cases. Like, we said 2 items exist here, 1 item exists here, and we checked 3 different places: the Louvre, the MoMA, and the Met. And we checked all those if the references are right. That's important. Don't just test it and say, I see it working once. Because if I made an error here and I didn't check, like, oh, this has 2 and this one didn't have 2 or didn't have 1, I would have written bad code. We want to make sure we're writing code that matches what we're writing. Like, the logic should match exactly that. As Charlie had already mentioned, we should dry our code. We don't want to repeat ourselves. So we can actually use the method that we created up here because it's exactly the same set of code. We're checking all the paintings that belong to the gallery. And for now, I could say, like, gallery paintings equals paintings. And this is referring to the instance method. And if we want to be explicit, we could say self.paintings because the self is what? Here. The instance. And so, paintings is an instance method. This is called the explicit. If we just remove it, it is now implicit.
It's also the same as at paintings?
Technically, it's saying going from the painting to all and grabbing all the paintings that belong to me. It has the same functionality as if I were to have an instance variable. If I were to ask for the paintings, yes, it will do exactly the same behavior. Go for it.
So I have a question about like the implicit. Like, is only Ruby that knows how to do this, or like do other languages also have like that function?
I think this might be a Ruby thing. I can't think of another language that has this.
I think Ruby's the most forgiving.
Yeah. So Ruby has this practice as far as figuring out words. This is called like lexical understanding. Like programming languages, just like English, have a set of grammar. It tries to read this. Like before we see anything execute, it tries to read this. And it says, does this word exist? Yeah. If it doesn't exist, make it exist. It says, does this word exist? It says yes. It first thinks, is this a method? It checks for any methods, and it says there's a painting method here. And then it says this is a method. If it didn't find a painting method here, it says this needs to be a variable. If this isn't a variable, it fails. That's the order of process. There's like a whole ruling for this. So that's why we can do this implicitly. I prefer doing explicit. The reason why is any person who's reading my code can see I'm talking about an instance method. It's a preference I have. I always like to be more explicit than I am implicit. That's a good practice to have because you're having other people read your code. What's that, Paul?
Oh, so that works better than so. That's what that whole.
Yep.
Okay, but you don't need to even do the variable there, right?
You're absolutely right. Another step of drawing out my code, I don't need this. And I can just say this. Because this says, go to the instance, give me an array, map over that array. Once again, this is the chaining part that I've been doing. And you know, this you'll only get more comfortable with as you do it more often. I'm going to also do this. This is a Ruby style convention, is that when you use the do and end, you should actually put this on separate lines. That's a style convention that they have. If I exit, rerun my code, everything should work. We changed code, we refactored code, and it should work as expected. I had my paintings. If I go to my painters, same deal. If the MoMA checks out its painters, it sees it. Everything's solid. We built one half of the relationship. Gallery can know about its painters through paintings. Now, I need your help to do the other half, where a painter needs to know about what galleries its paintings are in. So let's go to Painter. We have a bunch of methods here. I already see we've made this method here for paintings, so we already know we have our paintings. How can I figure out what galleries I'm in? Go for it.
Gallery.
I'm going to say galleries. And the reason why is this, when I use the multiple, like when I use the plural form of a word, it implies to the reader there's going to be an array or multiple items. Just like I use paintings here, that says there are multiple paintings. But continue.
We're going to do self.paintings.
And what is this going to give me?
So they give us all the paintings.
All the paintings. Yes, all the paintings that belong to this painter. And now what?
Map.
Okay.
Then we're going to do.
What's going to go in here?
No, we want to get the gallery.
So we're going for the galleries. But remember, whatever we're going to see here is going to be the singular of what's happening here. So if I have an array of paintings, the singular is a painting. You want to get in the habit of this because it will help you remind you, like, what am I doing here for every single painting? And now what do we need to do?
Painting that gallery equals self.
And what is this going to do? Let's actually, you know what? Let's test it. I'm not going to even, we're going to test it. So right now, we said self.map, self.paintings.map, painting, painting.gallery, equals self. What do we expect this to do? Go for it.
I give you a true false.
True false. So if I say prints, and I say paintings, this gives me, right now, an array of paintings. If I say prints.galleries, I want it to show me an array of galleries. But right now, it shows me an array with false. That's because map returns back the actual result of whatever we do. Map says, all right, you're going to apply this for all paintings. But whatever we return back is what gets into that array. So if Daniel says galleries, it's going to have false, false. What we want it to do is return back a gallery. And what do we need here? What do we need to do with this? If I want to see a gallery for a painting, go for it.
We have to use select, right?
We've already found all the paintings that belong to a painter. And we were right with this, that we want to go through our paintings. But we used map, which means that we wanted to give us an array, a new array. This gives us back a true. And this says, place this inside of the array. What we want to do is say, place the gallery inside of the array. So what do I need to change here? Go for it.
You just need to get rid of the comparison of the double equal self and just leave it as painting.gallery.
Remember, think about map in terms of what would I do for a singular item. If I wanted to get a painter's, if I wanted to get a paintings gallery, what would I type in? Painting.gallery. If I want to return that for map, I need to do that here. When I do this self, that says apply this, do this comparison, and return that. Return the result of this. We use this up top in select because select's behavior says I'm looking for true or false, and I will return the instance. They don't behave exactly the same. Go for it.
Would you also want to put unique at the end so that you're not getting repetition of galleries?
Sure. Let's first check. Can we get back our galleries? Daniel.galleries. And now when I chain a unique, it will only give me the first one. The first time it appears. So, do we understand that? Go for it.
Just like, could you assign that to a variable and then do unique on variables?
Yes.
Right. Same thing?
Yep.
Okay.
They do exactly the same. In fact, the computer translates it down to what we did.
You can't do it on the same line. Could you?
You could. I don't know what you mean by same line.
So like after the map, you can't like put a dot at the end of that or something like that.
End of what?
I wrote it. Sorry, I wrote it on one line with the curly braces.
You can. If I change this to this, it works exactly the same.
Okay, so you can do that. Okay.
This is also the same.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Works as expected. Be careful with using .unique. If my expectations is to see like all pieces of data, just show all data. While we can use unique, just be aware that maybe I want to see the one-to-one map. A map will always give me back the same number of inputs as outputs. So if I put 5 elements in, I will always get 5 elements out. They won't necessarily look the same though. Go for it.
I have a question about the relationship.
Yes, please.
So here it says that in order to get to gallery, painter has to go through paintings.
Mm-hmm.
And then the opposite way. But
Yes.
how do we know that? Cause we understand like logically that a painter needs to go through paintings to go to gallery. But wait, like what if it's like not as explicit like that and we just have the stuff?
You're absolutely correct. We as developers have to make that decision. I don't actually think in this README it says it. It may. It does not. Okay. So typically the language we'll use inside of like how do we know what something's supposed to look like is I will explicitly say like a painter has many galleries. Okay? I'm sorry. A painter will have many paintings. That is true. A painter has many paintings. I will explicitly write that in my README. A painter will have many paintings. I will also say a gallery has many paintings. The other half of this is true. And then I will say a painting belongs to a painter and a gallery. And it's up to you to decide how does this look. how does this translate into this drawing? I will explicitly say the relationship if you were ever to have to recreate it. Like if you were to try to write code, you will explicitly have it. That's the big piece. Okay? So you won't ever have been like, oh, you just have 3 models, just do it. It will always say what is the relationship, and it's up to you then to figure out how to draw that out, how that relationship looks. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah. Most.
Okay.
So like in general, when you're like coming up with these for different, whatever your domain is, like, so a painter has many paintings, a gallery has many paintings, but each painting can only have one painter and one gallery at a time.
Yes.
So would you always kind of like put the thing that can only have one in the middle? Is that like a good rule of thumb?
I wouldn't use a rule of thumb here.
Okay.
It really just depends on the domain.
Gotcha.
It really depends on the domain. There's not like a rule of thumb for this.
Okay.
Really, it's understanding who creates what. Who is the thing that needs to exist in order to create something? A painter and a gallery have to exist. They exist without paintings. At no point does either need to have a painting. But a painting cannot exist without a painter or a gallery.
Gotcha.
Can you explain that technically? Like you're referring to paintings and galleries and painters. Can you like just kind of say the domain and what it is so I can understand it?
Sure. I have been echoing it back, but I will continue to echo it. This is never going to go away. A painter?
No, I mean, well, not as a painter, painting or galleries. I mean, like technically. Yeah, like.
This is the technical terms.
Oh, okay. Great.
At the end of the day, what we're doing is technically representing the relationship of the real world in programming. This is the technical terms. What we're using here is describing models in talking about the relationship. Our whole goal as developers is to draw relationships with the real world inside of code. And we technically describe how does the code relate to one another, just like the real world relates to one another. Sometimes it's not like a one-to-one. It's not always like the relationship of the world represents what we're going to do here. But we try our best to do that, where it makes, like, the words of English make sense for us. Sometimes it doesn't. Go for it.
So like where we start is basically, it depends on like the situation or context, right?
It's all about context for this. Unfortunately, there actually is no technical terms for these things. Domain, models, relationships, has many, belongs to, has many through. Those are the technical terms, but they mean nothing without the context of what are we describing. So those things, the pieces, the mechanisms that we describe the relationship, those are the technical terms. And if you don't feel comfortable with those, start researching those. Like those are important pieces to understand. Cool? Yeah.
So like, what if there's like a world where you have like a studio and like paintings start off in the studio.
Sure.
And like they have to get moved into the gallery somehow. Like like you have a lot of painters out there who just, their paintings aren't in galleries yet.
Sure.
You were saying that, I guess what I'm getting at is like, I'm trying to think of like the gallery bubble, and like the studio bubble, and having them like be kind of interchangeable with each other or take the same place as each other.
Sure.
I guess I'm just not really there yet as far as like how that would be implemented.
Biggest piece of advice is be careful. We drew this domain in terms of the relationship that we have. When we're adding another model, that may mean that this relationship no longer is fully valid. If we're adding a new component like studio, that might change how this relationship now works. Because now we should think of a more general term then. Because it's not just simple enough to say that a painting belongs to a gallery and a studio. It's not as simple as that. Like the studio could be a third model, a fourth model by itself, if we wanted it to. like the relation, like you can't just like
Yeah, you have to like
Frankenstein it, unfortunately. Like it's not something that we can do. That's because we have to think of more general terms of like how do we turn it down. If I know there's like a studio and there's a gallery, maybe I can make a generic term like a place. And then it doesn't matter about that. And all places represent as either a studio or a gallery, and that can be an attribute of a place. So that way we know about that. And as programmers, we can change this. This isn't like the gospel. We can change this as long as it matches the relationship that we're asking. Does that make sense? Because there's many types. There's ways that we could expand on this in so many directions. So many things. Like a painting could technically have a model that also is like for the style. Like we could break it apart into very small pieces. But as developers, it's our whole goal to figure out where those pieces lie. Cool? Any other questions? Any other thoughts? Let's see if I did everything. Let's see. So painting, galleries, make painting, painter, painter name. Ooh. Painter paintings. Let's, no, that's actually pretty solid. Pretty solid. The only one we didn't do is painter name. But like, we know how to do this. If the painting class has a painter, and I'm asking for an instance method just to return back the painter name, what could I do? Like a painting. So I go into my painting, and I want it to have an instance method that says, returns the name of the painting's painter. What could I do? I need a method here called painter name. And it's going to return back, return back the name of my painter. Go for it.
Self.painter.name.
Bingo, that's it. It is quite that simple. Remember, it's thinking about who has the piece of data that I want. Getting in the practice of writing out the deliverable, whether it's copying and pasting it into your code, writing it out in your own words, get in the habit of it. I think that is a good habit as good developers, is to just understand what is being asked, what are the mechanisms that I need to do in order to do that. Just like you thought, you said self.painter. You thought, I know I'm talking about the painting. You know that the painting has a painter, and the painter has a name. That's the order of flow that you understood. And that's the order of flow that we should approach any problem, is who has the piece of data I want, and how do I get to the end goal? Yes. Always a shimmy. Any other questions? Because that's really all we have. Y'all are really good. I want to say you're really, really strong. And even if you don't feel like you're really strong, you are. I'm telling you. As the person who is like listening to your responses and like hearing you, I'm telling you, you are doing really well. And if you feel like you're not doing well, remember, we're also here for you. You're still learning, so be kind to yourselves because you are learning. It's not that you don't understand it, it's that you just don't know it yet, but you will. You will know it. That's why you're here. Okay? That's all I got. That's it.